Hey traders from around the world, what's going on? It's your boy Jeremy Alexander Newsome with reallifetrading.com. Wow, what a day. These candles are getting intense. The low of today was 259.85 on the SPY. And as mentioned, I do think we're going to go lower. Here is the weekly 100, and I think that's an easy spot to trade down into, most likely, which is about 257 and some change. We obviously could go a little bit lower than that, and we very well could, where we kind of break the 100 simple a little bit, kind of pop into this general region, maybe go a little bit lower than we went right here, just to scare everybody, make sure everyone sells their positions for some reason, and then we bounce. So we'll see if that actually happens on the SPY. Time will tell, I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I'm planning for. I mean, the daily candle looks pretty gnarly. You did get a good lower shadow, towards the last few minutes of the day, just literally the last 15 minutes, you got a little bit of buying coming in. As we're just experiencing massive volatility, right? So here's the last 5 minutes, and that 3:45 p.m. time frame, a lot of the times you'll see the market actually really just rage strongly after that particular point in time. So here's the Qs and the analysis from Friday. I actually left it on the charts. Here's my analysis on Friday afternoon in the swing trading room. If we gap up huge on Monday, probably a fade down. And obviously we were up huge this morning, up 1% and some change at open on the Qs. And we did again close below the low of this bullish candle. So bullish candle from Friday with all the volume. We have another bearish close below there. I did fade the Qs this morning, and this is a trade that I posted in Slack. Let me just scroll up on here. This is a good one. This was a fun trade, and I'm happy that it did as well as it did. So this is right here. So pretty much 8:28 a.m. Central, 2 minutes before the market opened. This was pretty much it. This is on the this was on the 15-minute candle, but this first 1 minute candle, the market was bullish. So if I actually hop over here to the Qs and go into the first 1 minute chart and kind of pull up over here, let me zoom in here for a second. All right, here it is, and the very first 1 minute candle, you can see really nice, gnarly, strong bullish candle, and that was it. So once we broke below there, we broke below, we retested, we traded down, we traded back up, we traded back down, and this is where I got out for 1.26 hours, almost at the exact bottom of that. If you're wondering how I decided to get out there, that was because that was the 10 EMA on a 3-minute chart, non-extended hours. So if I turn off the non-extended hours and come into today, here's the non-extended time frame, and we just pulled right into the 10. And I was up small, a little more than an R, so I figured, hey, let me just take the profits, and that was just a lucky move. Could have easily gone lower, but it didn't. And the other ironic part is, if I had just left it alone, I would have gotten stopped out, so it would have broken through my stop only to break back down. The ironically sad part about the Qs is when my plan says if I take one trade and I make money on it, I can't take it a second time, because once the Qs made this double top, right, boom, here was the S curve, right, that's where you should have bounced. Once this bullish candle got taken out with that bearish candle, I mean, that was it, right? That's the double top, that's a lower high, retest, continuation down, traded back down into this support, where it bounced around for a little bit, broke that support, retested into here, evening star reversal, failed that like I failed chemistry. And then this is the area that I actually went long. We took a long trade on Amazon. Kicking myself on this one just a little bit. Not too bad, but I turned a winner into a loser. Here was a 5-minute chart, and this was a tweezer bottom on Amazon, which has been a very long time since I've seen a tweezer bottom of this strength. So you had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave pattern down. And then you got a beautiful tweezer bottom. So it's like, you guys, we got to take that bullish, right? So we went in bullish. We got in. My buddy Paul actually got out at 1580. And I could have gotten out up there for an R. So this would have been a 1R gain. This was our 2R target. And when it did this, this, and this right here. That's where I signed off, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let it hang out because I am up for the day. And if I lose an R, I'll at least go up 0.26 Rs, which is the case presently. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. Bullish fades can take forever. Maybe the market will get a little bit of a bounce because the gap on the SPY wasn't insanely bearish today. The gap on the Qs was definitely more bearish, but the gap on the SPY, at least at some point, was more bullish than bearish. I was hoping it would bounce. It didn't. It traded down and just never looked back. Once it broke this tweezer, however, I'm sure some traders probably also hopped on bearish at that point, because once it broke the tweezer, you can see it retested. Gorgeous low of the day short to get in bearish right there, and just a really nice rollover. There were some good ones out there. Here's PayPal, PYPL. And PayPal, this is one that did stop us out of the weekly options newsletter. I mentioned on this one that if you did get stopped out, if it did take out the low, look to get your R back. And I was watching this one, didn't pull the trigger because, again, I was already in a trade bullish on Amazon, and PayPal was just putting in trap after trap, it looked like. So this was the trade, traded down to here, trade down to here. My thought was to go bearish. When this candle came in, I wanted to go bearish there with a stop there, which actually would have worked. And then once this bullish candle got taken out right here, that was really the signal that something was up. So if you were going to go bearish on PayPal, it would have been below the low of this candle right there. So entry here with a stop up here somewhere, and that would have been an easy 2 to 3 Rs. If anyone got a chance to play PayPal, congratulations. I talked myself out of a lot of good trades today, but mostly because it's coming towards the end of the month, really not up that much, and by not much, I mean 3.25 Rs until this stop out on PayPal. So this was a 1 R loss on PayPal. So as of today, it's going to be about 2.5 Rs, give or take, for the month, because I was able to lock in some put gains for some other trades out there. It's an interesting day, to say the least. There's a lot going on. So anyway, PayPal got stopped out of the weekly options newsletter trade, and this one has filled the gap to its entirety. Most likely, we're going to continue a little bit lower on PayPal. Speaking of, here's Boeing, and Boeing closed down 7% today. It's definitely going to go a little bit lower as well on a retest, so keep your eyes out for Boeing. I did have some requests for today. Here's Berkshire Hathaway's ticker symbol BRKB. BRKB. This is Berkshire. And Berkshire did end up on the day. It had a relatively decent gap at one point. It did trade into the long-term moving averages. Earnings is around the corner on Berkshire. So it depends on how you're playing this one, of course. Obviously, you can see a little bit of a double top right there. So you got the double top pattern on Berkshire Hathaway's. You got the retest gap. We've retested, obviously, traded down, retested again. We will have to see what happens with earnings, because this little area, pretty good support into this zone. So if we break this support, specifically if we close below the low of Friday, the low of Friday of 197.29, I think we're going to go a little bit lower. And, you know, earnings, obviously Berkshire could gap in any direction. But with the weekly chart, it looks like since we filled this gap right here, this weekly chart actually kind of reminds me of the daily chart on Square, which we're going to look at next. But this was kind of a nice little pop. You had a little bit of a gap, retest gap that got filled. It came down with a big bearish candle and closed. Actually looks, yeah, it looks a little bit like the daily chart on Square. Or is it the weekly? I think it's the daily. I'll have to show you in just a second. But when this candle closed and it broke below that candle, this is likely a bear flag. And again, unless you gap up on earnings, it looks to me like we're going to go down a little bit lower. There's a lot of things out there that still do look a smidge on the weak side. Square is one of them. So if I go back to the daily chart, you'll kind of see what I was talking about, kind of. So you had this, right, this little support, as I mentioned, on Berkshire Hathaway's, and then it kind of like S-curve, beautiful S-curve. You got the retest gap, right? So we traded higher, made a new all-time high. Then we filled the retest gap, got the small bullish high wave candle, and then we closed below it. only to make a new low, retest, and then a little bit of continuation lower. Square today, the low of today was 65.37. So probably going to pull down into the 200 simple moving average, most likely, which would be a really healthy pullback. Again, I don't think it's the end of the world, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I still think it's a good opportunity just to buy some dips on some stocks that were really, really just too far, too high, too easy. So yeah, we'll see what happens on Square. Obviously, going lower makes sense. We will see how low is low, but with the close like this and volume, moving averages and everything, it does look a little bit on the rough side presently. Google, G-O-O-G-L, was up big and then it was down big today. Again, huge white candle, nice gap up, beautiful fade down on Google most of the day. Here is the weekly long-term moving average, and what's big about that, we hit it on Google. So is this it? Is this the bottom? Does Google bounce down here? Possible. That's a really good support, and if anything, it'll probably hang out very similar to what it did back in 2015. As you can kind of see, almost the exact same time frame too. What was this lower shadow? So this lower shadow was in December 2015. So we're doing it a little bit early. But yeah, we did trade down to a buy zone on Google, aka Alphabet. So will it bounce from there? You know, we'll have to see. A little bit of a lower shadow, but if we do close below the low of this lower shadow, we're just going to keep going. Most of the stocks, most of the candles that I'm looking at, we took out a big bullish volume day from Friday with a close. So it seems like we're going to go a little bit lower. Same thing with Netflix, NFLX. Netflix was down nicely today. Closed below the low of the doji pattern, which was a gap down from Thursday night. So yeah, my note back from the 25th, if we close below 309 tomorrow, which was this day right here, more bearish and bullish for a while, and we did close below there pretty strongly. So Netflix, I mean, it is a double top. there's a few chart patterns out there that have some double tops on daily and weekly time frames. Now, granted, you have 5 weeks in a row of selling, so yeah, we could get a bullish day or a resting day or a sideways day, but a retest and a pullback. I just still think we have lower to go on a lot of these companies. Speaking of Netflix, as you all know, I did have a wager on Netflix. Sent out an email for every single person who is a real-life trader out there who wants to join me tonight actually, 7 p.m. 6 Central, doing the Netflix giveaway. So I'm giving away 2 premium subscriptions, annual subscriptions for Netflix, because I did lose the wager. Even though, again, I made the wager over here. It hit 310 right here, didn't get to 300. So I lost the wager, doesn't matter. Even though I was close and it did eventually hit 300, right? It didn't matter because I was off on the time. That's what wagers are for, and I like them. So be there tonight. If you need that webinar link, let me know. But that will be a pretty fun event and exciting to do a little bit of a giveaway. So from here, I'm just expecting Netflix to maybe retest up into about 392.57 tomorrow, something like this, and then most likely a continuation down a little bit lower into the next few days on Netflix. So many things to look at. Here's Facebook, took some FB, and my buddy Iberto and Julian making some money on some short puts on Facebook. That's good. Earnings right around the corner. And my note on Facebook has been, if it closed below the 100 simple at any point in time, to get into some puts, because we're going to go lower, and we most likely are. 133.27 is the 200 simple on the weekly, which we've never hit on Facebook. It's brand new. We've never even interacted with it before. So that'll be a huge support to keep an eye on. If Facebook does gap down on earnings, it probably will fade depending on how large it gaps down. So if it gaps down to 132, which is that 200 simple on a weekly, it'll probably trade up a little bit higher, most likely, and just like that. If it gaps up, depending on how high it gaps, it probably will fade as well. Time will tell, but right now a decently strong downtrend on Facebook. We're making lower highs, we're making lower lows. It keeps getting punched around. And if we gap up on Facebook and run out of here, then great. But most likely we'll gap up and probably fade a little bit, eventually hit the 200 simple. And I'm just going to let everyone know, same thing I said with the 100 simple on a weekly. If Facebook breaks below or hangs out that 200 simple, trades around here for a few weeks like we did over here, and then ends up breaking that 200, Facebook's going to have a nice, even bigger pullback coming. So just make sure you have some puts ready to go if that is indeed the case. And last but not least, as far as the stocks that got requested, here is Southwest Airlines. And I actually did have a bullish setup on Southwest Airlines because we're sitting here on the 200 on a weekly chart, which again, we haven't hit in a very, very long time. We did trade down into a support level. So you're probably thinking, Newsom, you're crazy for going bullish. I mean, I guess, but we've been down here before. I didn't get triggered in, so that's a good thing. But here is the daily chart on Southwest, and you have a pretty decent bearish retest gap. You had a good hammer. My entry was right above the high of that hammer, $50.31. We had the exact same high on Southwest, a good close below the hammer. It says to me that we probably will retest a little bit more, something like this. But I'm going to be canceling this setup later today because with a close like this below that hammer with volume, even though it's a retest gap, we're probably going to retest. And yep, I think we're going to go a little bit lower on Southwest. Pretty surprising that we did not bounce off the 200 simple today. And, you know, that'll happen. Anyway, team, a lot of gaps, a lot of day trading opportunities. There are so many possibilities to make money out there with your day trades. Just make sure you are focusing on your risk, not doing anything too crazy or wild, and keeping track of the sentiment of the gaps. That is going to be key because people are going to be trapped. You're going to know where they're trapped, right? So for example, tomorrow on the Qs, if we gap up a little bit, we've done that before. Some bears will probably be trapped. You know, depending on where we open, of course, we'll probably open higher, run up a little bit, very similar to some of the other previous trades, and then we're going to get, you know, some retest that follows through and a little bit of a rollover that happens later in the week. Still looking for some bearish continuation out there for a little bit lower on the broader markets, folks. Keep me posted if you have any questions. You know where I'll be. And until next time, love life, live life, and trade it. Bye.